rise, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Ms. Malinick.
Here.
Ms. Jarvis.
Here.
Mr. Antonopoulos.
Here.
Mr. Abiscato.
Here.
Mr. Grillo.
Here.
Mr. Donovan.
Here.
Ms. Keefe. Ms. Alcieri. Mr. Bruno.
Here. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by the following means. Annual notice was sent to the Herald and News, the Record, the South Bergenite, the Observer, Township Clerk, and posted in the lobby of the Town Hall and Board Hall, setting forthcoming scheduled work meetings and public meeting of the Board. May I have a motion to approve last month's
So moved.
minutes? Roll call.
Ms. Malinick. Ms. Jarvis.
Four.
Mr. Antonopoulos. Mr. Abiscato. Mr. Grillo. Mr. Donovan. Ms. Keefe. Ms. Alcieri.
Four.
Mr. Bruno.
4.
It's fine, it's fine.
Yeah.
Is that a little better, Mr. Grillo? Now you're going to push me off the table. I still have a year left to my term, though, so you can't push me away yet.
Superintendent. And ladies and gentlemen, just so you know, even if you didn't sign up to speak, after these gentlemen here give their report, if you have any questions you'd like to ask of them about anything, they're wide open to take all of your questions. Okay? Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. First and foremost for tonight, we wanted to, I know some people may not be able to stay for the entire meeting, so we wanted to talk about the situation that occurred at Washington School, being closed for 2 days and relocated for another 4. So tonight we have with us from Land Associates, Garrett Fisher, who's with us, as well as Ed Putnam from the Department of Environmental Protection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of turn it over to Garrett to start with a little information, and from there, Ed might step in as well. And if you can, please ask them any questions while they're here, because they're probably not going to stay for the entire meeting. When they're done, I have to do a testing report that includes Clark and some other state assessments that we do. So instead of asking questions later about that, if you can ask them, after they're done giving the little speech.
Excuse me, Anthony, could you grab the microphone right there and get it to one?
All right, I'll turn it over to Garrett now.
I'm Garrett Fisher from Land Associates. I'm a licensed site remediation professional. And thank you, board, for having me tonight. Thank you for giving me the time to speak and field your questions. I think the first place I'd like to start is just a little bit of the history of how we got where we are with Washington. The district is looking to put additions on schools, and at these schools, there's a law called the MAD Act, which requires the developer to look at possible environmental impacts that may occur on an addition. So at some of the schools in the district, we did almost a thesis paper. We looked into the history of the property, and we did this at a number of schools. With Washington, what we found was there aren't any environmental conditions on the property. However, I had concerns of neighboring properties that may be impacting our property. protect the board, to protect the children, and to protect the district, I proposed that we look at the potential impact, and we look at the air underneath the building that can be coming from an off-site source. There's different ways that we could have done that. We could have looked at groundwater, but that's not a direct reading. So we ended up drilling through the floor. We took samples of the air underneath the building. That initial sample came back with one detection of one compound above a regulatory guideline, subslab soil gas screen level. Since we got that one detection, I still had a concern, so we wanted to confirm or refute that information. So we resampled. When we resampled doing the same thing, test that air underneath the building, we found 4 compounds: ethylbenzene, benzene, chloroform, and TCD. Once we confirmed that that soil gas, the air under the building, was above a screening level, we immediately notified the board, notified the district, and we had an emergency meeting to see what we needed to do. It's important to realize that the samples under the building are not related to the site. Okay? What we found under there, there was no trigger for us to really look at it, except that we were going to build an addition in the near future. And when you do that, we wanted to make sure that the addition would be designed properly to handle any environmental concerns. Our findings of the subslab, the next step, the subslab gas, the next step to deal with that was to take indoor air samples. When we found and confirmed that the subslab gas was high, that's when the district decided there's a potential to impact our environment, the children, the receptive. And they decided in the best interest to be proactive that they close the school. They weren't required to close the school, but it was a proactive measure that they took. The first thing that we said in our meeting, that emergency meeting, was we need to act as these are our children in this building. And I think that was done. There are concerns, and I understand that, but so we then collected our indoor air samples, and they were fine. So the letter that you saw on the webpage explains exactly what I just said. If the air underneath the building was elevated, the indoor air is fine, and there is not an impact from the subslab coming into the indoor air environment. Once that was discovered, they opened up the school again. While that was going on, we also notified the DEP. As soon as we confirmed that there was soil gas underneath the building, the state agencies that make up all those requirements and the laws were notified, and here they are today. So, I'm not really sure if there's anything else Ed, you wanted to address?
Hi, my name is Ed Button. I'm Assistant Director of the Publicly Funded Remediation Program of the DEP. If there had been a problem discovered in the indoor air, I would be up here telling you what DEP would be doing in the future here and what action would be taken. In this case, there's no real action to take on the school itself. We do have, based on the earlier reports, what we call an unknown source. So we have a piece of data that shows a little bit of a problem. So the department is going to return to the school and take some additional samples, probably in early November at this point, just to confirm things and just have a little bit of an effort to try to find out where the contamination is coming from. So we have very little to do. The school is fine. The DEP looked at the data. We have the State Department of Health looked at the data. Everyone's in agreement the kids can be back in school. I think we're, at this point, we're willing to take questions from anyone.
I was a question about 18 years at that school. There were incidents in the school. Firemen were called, smelling and odor. Now you're saying that there was no harm to the children, because I'm worried about the children that had already graduated, that were in high school. What about those children? They were breathing the same air.
Well, there was nothing detected in the sample that were taken a couple weeks ago, a week. So based on that date and time, everything's fine. We would not have expected it to be worse at some other point, at least probably what we call vapor intrusion from the gases that may be coming out of the ground. If there was prior incidents of things happening in the neighborhood and the wind blowing contaminants over, nothing we did was investigated.
Because at one point they took the little kids when they were in school, because they switched schools around. And the little babies had to walk like it was 85 degrees from Washington School, because they were not allowed back in school, to St. Michael's. So this is going
This was
back
some time ago.
about 2 years ago,
I wasn't involved, I don't think Derek was either.
because nobody's ever called in.
Just in response to that, there's not much we can do about the past, and if there's no law or regulation that's broken, there's really no trigger, we call it, to actually take action. So there's times where a carbon monoxide detector may go off in your house, and well, what do? You call the police, and you leave, and then the air goes away, and it's fine, and you come back into your home. So there may be instances in the past where there was something that was done, but my question is, what do you want us to do now from a legal perspective moving forward? And I know that doesn't answer your question, and some of that may have happened, but what we are dealing with is a incident at Washington that we took appropriate measures proactively, and the outcome led to clean air centers in the building. The results, which are in the public record, that you have the letter and the results on the Washington School webpage, are the same results that the DEP has. Okay, but that information is on the district webpage. The Department of Health has reviewed it. The DEP has reviewed it. An independent licensed environmental professional has reviewed it. So based on the incident, the conclusion is that the air is acceptable and it's below any standard. There's not much more that anyone can do about that. Part of this process, as I explained, where the law requires when you do a school addition. So we did this preliminary assessment on 4 schools in the district, which was Columbus, Roosevelt, Washington, and Franklin. Washington was the only one that had, from my concern, neighboring properties that may impact us. Roosevelt didn't have any environmental concerns, so I, under my license, wrote that school off from an environmental impact perspective. Columbus, you formerly had an underground storage tank. That's how you heated the building, you had oil. That tank was previously closed and removed. I had concerns with that tank that all the paperwork was there. So I came back and we sampled at Roosevelt. And to my satisfaction, that tank was closed properly, so I closed Roosevelt. At Franklin, the same thing, there was a former tank. I sampled that tank and I wrote that off because I was satisfied with it. At Washington, I was not satisfied with the information that I discovered on my own doing my research. That's why we sampled. That's why I personally went to them and said, you need to look at this because I'm not going to write it off. Because I'm concerned about these kids. Because I want to make sure that this environment is appropriate. We make this addition. That's my license, that's my job. So that's why I sampled Washington. Okay? I don't work for them. I'm not on the board. Okay? I have children, I live in a different district. But every district I work for, I do the same exact thing. The question was, when we collect the air under the building, how do we get that? We actually drill through it. There's a method on how you collect something. So it's a scientific method, it's accepted, it's approved. So you drill through the floor, you do all this sealing, there's a special port. So there's a method to take that sample.
My question is, are the holes sealed up now?
The holes are sealed immediately after the samples are collected. Yes. I'm going to work my way back. I'm going to take the social points first.
First of all, I want to commend Commissioner Greco and the board for actually putting the safety of our children first in this issue, and thank you very much. This was done via a sample. What do we have to expect once construction actually starts? Is this going to be an ongoing problem? Is there going to be a certain smell? Are the children going to be affected? Are we going to lose any more days of school? Is this something we should prepare ourselves for, and is it safe?
Great question. The reason you do this sampling, you do the environmental due diligence, is to make sure that the design and engineering of that new addition or school is done properly. And if mitigation is required, it's installed on the existing school. At this point, the district has taken it as far as the law requires them, and that's why there's a case for what we found being handled by the DEP. The DEP, I don't want to speak for them, but I would request of them that they look into the area where the addition was or will be to see if there's a potential impact. And if there is, the architect and engineer then would design and engineer out or mitigate any potential impact. Does that answer your question? Okay, do you want to?
When we do investigations, it's an iterative process. So our next set of data will lead us down to the next set, and so on. Until in this case, we find a source. Then once we find the source, our process is we work under a polluter pays principle. So we'll try to get that source to perform any remediation that may be necessary.
My father is in the construction industry, so I know there's always ongoing issues, there's always problems. So once we start digging for a foundation for the addition, I mean, obviously we did some soil work, and that's what we're going to create. We're going to probably dig just as far down for the foundation, so I just want to make sure.
Well, yeah,
It's not another issue where the gas is going to be exposed, and then the school gets closed down again, and so on and so on.
So soil gas collects underneath structures over time, okay? Once it's kind of opened up to the atmosphere, it dissipates rapidly. So chances are you really won't have to do anything special during construction, except build into the construction a vapor barrier, venting mechanism, something to allow the vapors to, in essence, go around the construction. But it's not very difficult. People do all the time.
So the soil is still contaminated, and you're going to monitor the air for how long, and if it stays contaminated, if you had to remove it, what would you have to do?
Just to clarify, there was never any soil sampling. There's no soil contamination that's been identified. In the initial letter, it does speak of that. There was no sample for soil collected at Washington. It's just the gas, the soil gas. Why they call it soil gas and not something else, that's the state. So the gas under the building still has elevated concentrations. It's not coming into the building. The DEP will investigate that further.
So it's almost like a radon type of thing, where the gas comes up?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, now where are you going to build the Washington School? Is anything tested over there?
It's my understanding, yeah, the addition is going out the back. That's where the one sample was found that had slightly elevated levels. So the additional testing that the DEP does will be in that area.
So then as the future goes on, if this gas is still there, you'll put fans or whatever you have to put into the school to expel it out, to get kids to still be in there, hopefully in a safe and healthy environment.
I'll let him take the second. Our investigation is going to look for a source. If there's an off-site source, soil is contaminated off-site, that is contaminating groundwater, that is then flowing into a school and coming up, and we're detecting that gas up. That's the normal pathway for vapor intrusion to occur. So after we find the source, that's where we remediate the soil. And after that soil gets remediated, the rest of the stuff usually dissipates in that over time.
In regards to the new addition, I'm not sure by code, I'm not an architect or engineer, but our firm does build and design schools. And from most schools, if not all, new additions or new schools, the concern is radon. So you put in a passive radon system, which is cheap and easy. You probably know, you put a vapor barrier, so the air, if there it does come up, it gets trapped. Well, then it needs a way to get out. So what's cheap and easy? PVC pipe that's slotted and stone. So that any air that gets trapped finds the least path of resistance to that pipe, and then it gets vented. In some instances where you know it's contaminated, and indeed you're surprised to speak of this, you actually make an active system. So you put in that similar system, and then you put in blowers and fans, and you design to make sure that there's enough draw and vacuum. I don't believe that from the findings at this point that the addition will require any active mitigation. There will be, I'm not the designer, I'm not the architect, it's another firm, but I think by code, some type of depressurization piping will be under the building to release any air, whether it's clean, whether it's contaminated, up and above the roof line. And it doesn't mean that that air going up is contaminated, it's just that's building practices nowadays.
So my question is about exactly how the air quality test was done. How many rooms were tested, et cetera. And also, I know, and a lot of parents were witness to this, the day before the test and also the day of the test, every single window in the school was open. And that's just seems, it stands to reason that that would have diluted the sample, and if that also
There's a procedure for when we sample. I personally was there. 24 hours before the sample was collected, that school was in a condition that is typical of every single day that that school was in operation. The windows were closed. I was there, I had 2 technicians there, the DEP was there, and Scott was there. I checked the rooms, the windows were closed. I'm not saying I'm 100% right, I'm not saying I'm wrong in what you saw, but again, it's my license, it's my job. I did everything I thought appropriate to make sure that the regulations were followed to collect samples that were representative to protect your children. The first question, what classrooms? The soil gas samples weren't collected in classrooms. The flooring in the classrooms is linoleum, so we didn't want to penetrate that because then it could have been a pathway. So the soil gas samples were collected in the stairwells, the boiler room, and there's in that basement there's a back janitor's office and closet. So concrete floors in those locations were penetrated. That's where we found it. The indoor air was collected in each one of those classrooms in the basement and that back closet in the janitor's room. That's shown on that letter that's on the DEP, on the webpage, the Washington School webpage. The samples were collected from Friday to Saturday.
It's a 24-hour
It's, what it is you penetrate the floor and you put this tubing in, and then there's a canister. It's called a Suma canister. It's stainless steel, and it has a vacuum. It's set from the laboratory to a standard, and then there's a regulator. That regulator tells you how long it draws air into that canister. This is the soil gas and the indoor air. The soil gas is collected the same way as the indoor air, same canister. Just one has a tubing that goes below the slab, and the other one is just open to the air and the
subslab sample.
If the windows were open, just it, would they have diluted the indoor air sample?
If the windows were open,
Yeah.
there's a possibility that it could dilute the sample. There's also the possibility that the ambient air is more contaminated than your indoor air. So, did we collect an ambient sample? Yes, we collected an ambient sample outside the building. So the outside air is shown on that table, on that letter, compared to the inside air.
There is a sign in a public parking lot right across from Washington School that has something about contamination and stuff like that. Is that something you're concerned about being in the general area of the school?
That's why I was concerned.
Oh, okay.
I know you said future samples will be taken again. Is it going to be with children or not?
Yes, we're looking at the 8th and the 9th, when the teachers convention. So, that way we don't have to worry about it.
And because this is a site that has an issue, when construction starts, will you continue to come and monitor testing, or is it just that done with the
That depends on the timing of our unknown source investigation versus construction. And, I mean, if we have to, yeah, we'll come back and match up these schedules. But at this point, the construction is pretty far away. What's construction?
And your unknown source investigation, I know this is New Jersey and we have a lot of contamination. Where are we on the list of priorities?
I have you penciled in for November 8th and 9th.
Okay, like, because I know you have to find your source, so.
Yeah. Schools and daycares are priorities.
Either one? Ladies first. I'm sorry, I can't.
When you say that you're trying to find the source, there's a building in the back of Washington School that used to be a factory years ago. Does anybody check the surrounding buildings before? Like, and I understand you're concentrating on the building, but what about all the surrounding areas? Because there's gas stations that used to be there, there's one across the street, there's a building in the back.
That's exactly what happens with the preliminary assessment. It's the research on the property and the neighboring properties. So that's why we sample, because of neighboring properties. Which one, I don't know. That's not for us to figure out and spend the district's money to figure out why, who's contaminating us. It's to say, we have a concern, is there an impact directly on us? And there isn't. The outdoor property, yeah, there's a potential impact. But we were concerned with all the neighboring properties.
So we do take a look at that also. And our next round of samples are going to position certain samples in those general directions to see whether or not it's going to lead us that way or not.
So, I just want to
bring the focus of the conversation back away from what's legally required and your license for the health of kids and employees in the school. Okay? That's one thing that keeps me, 3 or 4 times you made a reference about the license and what's legally required. It kind of rubs a lot of people in this room the wrong way. First question, what is the timeline for the next 6 months? What is the plan? What is the responsibility? And I know that sometimes legal standards are not necessarily high enough, which is often then manifested in a lot of complications in people's lives many years down the road, because that was the legal standard in the 70s or the 80s or today, right? So what is the EPA or the board, are you planning on getting another opinion, second opinion by an independent firm, another independent firm? And 2, what is the timeline, what is the plan by the state or the EPA for the rest of this year, the next 6 months? How do we figure out what's going on? Should kids be going to that school while we still don't know what the source is? There's a factory, there's a mechanic, a gas station surrounding that school.
So, based on the data we have, there's no reason why the kids can't be in that school. We're coming back to get more data. Part of the timing of that is to take it during what we call the heating season, which, from a vapor intrusion standpoint, would give you the conditions that would be more favorable to actually intrude. So we're going to take that sample again during the heating season. And we're also going to take some other samples to help us with the unknown source part of the investigation. And again, that unknown source investigation is iterative. It depends on what those samples tell us as to what our next step is. So the timeline, it depends on what we find. And when we have something to say, we can come back and hold another public meeting. I mean, when we have information that we can present on that source investigation, we can come back and have another public meeting.
And the next step is the first week in November?
8th and 9th is what we have to go with.
I apologize if I rubbed anyone the wrong way by saying I'm licensed. I just wanted to emphasize that this is my career, and I do have children, and I do put myself in issues. I have empathy for you feel, because I deal with this on a daily basis. I did not mean to rub anyone the wrong way. I was emphasizing that I've dedicated my life and my profession to helping school districts and helping children, and by protecting their environment. So I hope I didn't rub anyone the wrong way.
Superintendent wanted me to emphasize, the reason November is the next time we come out here is that's the beginning of what we consider the heating season.